Hi guys, so today we are recreating this abstract scene in Blender. Okay, so let's get started by creating a new file. Okay, starting by deleting the default cube and adding a torus. We can add more segments like 48 times 2 and 12 times 2. Okay, let's shade it smooth. Let's make it a bit thinner, and now let's shade it smooth. Let's rotate on the x-axis by 90, so we have a front view of the torus. And let's just set up our camera, and let me turn on my screencast key. Okay, so let's set up our camera by clicking Ctrl Alt and numpad 0. Okay, and then clicking on our camera and changing the focal length to 85. Okay, let's get to the output. What's this? Output properties tab, and just set this to a 1080 aspect ratio. So it's a 1:1, sorry, aspect ratio, and just zoom the camera in. Okay, let's make it perfect by zeroing out these values and pointing a bit up the camera. Okay, yeah, so next step is recreating this torus. So adding a torus. That is pretty good, I think. Yeah. Okay, so rotate on the x-axis just like we did with this one, and just scale it down and go into the modifier tab and add in a displace modifier. Click on new to create a new texture, and under the texture panel click on clouds. Here I'm gonna set this to a maybe 0.43, that's pretty good, and setting this strength to 0.2. Okay, going to camera view, pressing R 2 times to rotate it on the full 360 view, whatever. Scaling it up, shading smooth, and then adding a wireframe modifier so we can see through it. Let's see the thickness. This should be good. Let's see. Yeah, almost perfect. Okay, so next thing we're gonna cover are the materials. So starting with this little torus material, splitting the view and going into the node editor by pressing Shift F3, creating a new material called little torus. And let's go into the material preview and disable the overlays here. Okay, giving us a bit more space here. Press N to close the properties panel here, and just delete the principled and adding a emission shader. Connecting to the surface, and just let's spawn a gradient texture here, and Ctrl Shift click to preview it. Ctrl T to bring up this mapping node, and maybe let's spawn in a color ramp between here. Let's get this stuff out of the way. Drag the black a bit to the right and change the black to a almost blue purple here, and set this to a pink. Yeah, like this pink. Okay, and then connect this color into the color of the emission shader. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay, let's get to the big torus. I can't write. Material. Okay. For that, I'm providing a image texture in the description. If you want to download it, it's free. And why I can't import it, I don't know. Let's try it again. Yeah, just some Blender bug. Okay, whatever. Control Shift click to preview it, and as you can see, it wraps perfectly onto our sphere. So it looks pretty good. Let's just set this to the color of the principle, and let's see. Looks beautiful. Okay. If you want, you can add the displacement by duplicating the texture and clicking on these two buttons to create a new texture, or maybe displacement. Okay, setting the color space to non-color and just setting this to a displacement to the displacement output, and set between those connections a displacement node. Control left click to adding a route node, so it's a bit more organized here. Okay, and just unplug the normal and plug it into the height. And for displacement to happen, first we need to switch to cycles. Okay, and then going into render view mode, and then going into the material settings, and under the displacement, selecting displacement and bump. Okay, so right now it's a lot stronger, so let's set the scale to 0.2. Okay, and as you can see, we don't have a lot of geometry, so click on the torus and under the modifier tab, add in a subdivision surface. Set this to maybe let's see. Let's set this to 1, so we have some spikiness yeah, going on here, and just yeah, that's basically it. Let's maybe increase a bit our roughness. Okay, and that's basically the material. So let's set maybe the mid level to 0.3, so it's a bit thicker. The torus is a bit thicker. And let's get to the lighting process, so changing the shader editor to the 3D viewport and deleting the default light. We are gonna add in an HDRI, which I'm going to provide in the description if I can find it here. Okay, and let's set the strength is to maybe 20 is a bit high. Let's set this to 10. Okay, we're going to the shader editor here and going to Word. Control T on the environment texture here and rotate the HDRI to your pleasure. I'm gonna set this to this guy. Okay, just like this. Let me render region just this. Okay, that's pretty good. Last thing we're going to do is adding a light source here. So let's just go into the 3D viewport here, adding a area lamp. Rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees and bring it back. Let's go in here, set the power to maybe 1000. Maybe 1000 is a bit too much. Let's set this to 300 or 100. Okay, that's pretty good. And let's set the size to be a bit thicker. Set this to maybe 500. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's set this to, let's save, sorry, this so we don't lose anything. Okay, and then we can render like at just 32 sample, it would be fine. And let's just wait for the render. Okay, so the render is finished, and next thing we're gonna do is getting this glow effect, and we're gonna get this by going into the compositing. Just check use nodes and Control Shift click on the render layer so we can bring this viewer. And that is basically our eye, what we can see. And as you can see, we have this backdrop here, and for panning out we're gonna press V on the keyboard, and for panning in is Alt V. Okay. So between the render layer and our viewer, we're gonna set a glare node and set the streaks to fog glow. Okay, set the size to maybe no, 8 should be pretty good. Let's set the threshold to maybe 0.8 and set this to 7, or maybe no, 8 is pretty fine. Okay. Remember to plug your final composite node also into the composite, and then we can re-render again to see the changes. Okay, and there we go, the results are pretty similar. So that's it. If you want to get the complete blend file, you can get that to the Gamrot page. Check that in the description below. And that's it. If you want to support the channel, there's the paypal.me link always in the description. And that's basically it. If you have any question, I'm happy to respond to them in the description. And that's it, guys. Stay safe. Bye.